Cruise news time, and wow, it's popping. It's popping. There's a lot to cover today, including Carnival's need for money. The first cruise line to drop their testing for U.S. sailings. The CDC, what are they? Have they washed their hands of the cruise lines? Do cruise lines even have to report cases anymore? How do I feel about testing and vaccines and all that stuff? Plus, I did something yesterday that I have to admit to. A lot. There's a lot going on. That's what I'm trying to say. Cruise news. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Lido, Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news updates and more. And more. I don't know, a lot to cover today. What is it? It is Thursday, the 21st of July, 2022. We're sliding into the weekend, and I made a decision yesterday that will drastically alter my weekend. More about that later, but first, the first cruise news story is yesterday was a great day for the cruise stocks. All three cruise stocks rose. Carnival made it back up to over $11, and as a Carnival Cruise Line Corporation, Carnival Corporation stockholder, I was excited to see a couple dollar movement on my cruise stock. But then as the market closed yesterday, there came this announcement that Carnival was selling enough common stock to raise $1 billion. And I don't know if you know that this is how that works, but when you infuse a lot more pieces of common stock into the market, well, sometimes it will cause the other stocks to go down. And that's exactly what happened in post-market trading yesterday. The gains that were seen during the open market time yesterday quickly evaporated. And as we're looking at the stock today, it's back down into the $9 range. But the long and the short of it is Carnival they need money. They have a huge debt that they have to pay, a big debt payment that needs to be paid in 2023. While the company is moving back toward profitability, there still is some challenges. There's still some losses there. And so one of the ways that they're raising capital, releasing $1 billion more of common stock. And there you go. Carnival, got to get that bag. Look, I think it's going to work out in the end. I'm not giving stock advice here. You got to do that risk assessment on your own. But I'm still, as a stockholder, I'm still believing that in the long term, these cruise stocks will come back. And I guess I'm riding that until it doesn't seem to be true. But do you hold the stock out there for the cruise lines? Are you paying attention to it at all? Or are you just going to wait till it all comes back? That's an interesting conversation. Leave a comment below. Cruise news story number 2 is about the first cruise line dropping pre-cruise testing for U.S. sailings. I put out a special breaking news on that, but if you haven't seen it, here's the recap. Virgin Voyages has come out and said they will no longer require their sailors to do pre-embarkation testing, both in Europe and in the United States. In Europe, that new change happens on July the 24th, just a few days from now, and in the U.S., those sailings will start on July the 27th. This is one of the first cruise lines to come out after the CDC announcement that they were dropping their cruise program to start altering their protocols. Another one of their protocols that they altered was the amount of vaccinated passengers they require to have on board. They've dropped that to 90%. That leaves 10% of capacity for unvaccinated passengers, so they're welcoming more unvaccinated passengers. This is a cruise line that is adults only, so they're sailing without kids. That's 10% unvaccinated adults welcome on Virgin Voyages cruise ships. We're looking to see if other cruise lines make this move. I'm going to talk a little later in the show what I think about testing, vaccination, masking, that kind of thing. I don't think I've ever... I'll try to clarify my position. It will be definitely a debatable position that some will disagree with, but we will talk about that. But while we're here, let's talk a little bit about the CDC. The CDC, they dropped their cruise program just a couple days ago, and it opened up a lot of questions. Really. The CDC had been keeping track of the amount of cases on board. They had that color-coded dashboard where they would determine what color a cruise ship was based on the amount of cases on board. A lot of people went there to see if their cruise ship had cases on board. Well, they've done away with that, and that's left people asking, okay, well, how are we tracking cases on cruise ships? And they're frequently asked questions. There's a question that says, if I want to know how many cases are on the cruise ship that I'm going on, what should I do? And they were like, well, you should just reach out to the cruise line. So I don't know if the cruise lines are going to be forthcoming with the amount of cases that have been on board their cruise ships, but you're not going to be able to see it anywhere on the CDC website. They were asked, why did they do away with the colored chart? And they said that there's so many different protocols that the chart wasn't, perfectly representative because it was too disparate. The protocols were too different. But in that FAQ, very interestingly, they said that the cruise lines are still reporting cases to the CDC. So I guess we can take some solace in that there is some reckoning, some looking at the numbers coming off of cruise ships. And I'm assuming that the CDC could step in if things get really crazy. Of course, the CDC dropping their cruise program could be seen in a couple ways. I know there's a group of people out there that feel like the cruise lines need a level of oversight. And so the CDC stepping away, folks out there are saying, well, this isn't good. And then there's other folks that say, well, look, business should be business. Let the way that they carry themselves, let the way that they treat their passengers, let that be the determining factor. Let the market take its course, as it were. It's a question there. Is that the safest approach? If you let everything go willy-nilly, are you putting people's lives at risk? That is the core debate. And with that said, let me just lay it out there, what I think about the testing, the vaccination, the masking, that kind of thing. But before I do that, how about that? Well, it's a trade-off. Before I get there, let me quickly invite you to subscribe. If you like staying up to date with everything that's going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. So here's where I'm at on this whole thing. I have been someone who's kind of sided with traditional established medicine, scientists, doctors. And I'm not saying that I've sided with the CDC. I've looked for external sources that have a good reputation in this whole thing. And I know that statement's even going to raise the back of some people. We're in a challenging time right now. What information can you trust? Who can you trust? What information is legit? There's so many people with information out there and so many different types of information out there. It's really a challenge. So I acknowledge that, and we all have to use whatever we have in our lives to make some determination whether you're going to trust a source of information or not trust a source of information. But to summarize what I believe from those sources that I trust are this. First and foremost, there is really no relationship between vaccination, pre-cruise testing, and masking. It's not a correlation. It's not a correlation between those three things. Those are all three different safety measures that the cruise lines are using. So sometimes I'll read in the comments, they're like, well, if everybody is vaccinated, then why do they have to be tested or wear a mask? I don't think the cruise lines are treating those things in a relationship. Those things are being treated independently as safety measures. And this is what I believe. People who are unvaccinated are at greater risk of getting severe COVID. The vaccines and the boosters, even though they're not doing well at stopping the latest variant, the BA.5 variant, a lot of people are still getting infected, even though they're vaccinated and boosted. That's a reality. But those infections of vaccinated people are not resulting in massive cases of severe COVID. And so the accepted idea by many, and I would say including the cruise lines, is that unvaccinated people are at greater risk for getting severe COVID than vaccinated people. And so the reason that you see the vaccine mandate for cruise ships is because it's easier to take care of infected, vaccinated, and boosted people than unvaccinated, unboosted people. Imagine if you let half the cruise ship be unvaccinated and say even 10 or 20 of those unvaccinated passengers got severe COVID that say required a respirator. Can you put 15 people? Can you put 5 people? Can you put 10 people on a cruise ship on a respirator and get them somewhere where they can get better treatment? This is why I think that the vaccine requirement is in place. I think it's purely for the ability to give the proper care or not give the proper care. So vaccination, that's all about medical care, in my opinion. When it comes to testing, that's a whole different ballgame. And again, we haven't seen a lot of data from cruise lines saying they kept X amount of people off the cruise ship because they tested them beforehand. But think about it. Let's just do a simple exercise. Let's say that you know that 100 people are getting on the cruise ship and you test them all, and 15 of them at that moment 2 days before the cruise, 3 days before the cruise, are testing positive for COVID. You know for sure that those 15 people have COVID. If you had the choice, would you rather put them on a cruise ship or ask them not to get on the cruise ship? It's a preventative measure because if you have 15 people that you know for sure have COVID out of 100 and you put them on the cruise ship, well, that's 15 people that you know pretty well could be spreading COVID. Now, I know there's a lot of challenges with testing. I know people are going to push back and say that tests don't work at all. You're going to catch some people that don't actually have COVID with a false negative. You're going to miss some people with a false positive. But at the end of the day, I feel like if you're getting anybody that is truly positive and keeping them off the cruise ship, well, that should bode well or bode better for the cruise experience. That's why I assume that they're doing the pre-cruise testing. I don't really like the pre-cruise testing, but again, if I'm standing at the cruise ship and they're going to test 1,000 of us and they're going to catch 100 or 80, or I don't know what the number is because they're not publishing the number. If they're keeping those amount of people off the cruise ship, even though there's going to be some mistakes in that, I think that's a better scenario. And again, I don't like the pre-cruise testing, but it does, give a better environment for their crew members. It does give a better environment for their passengers to know for sure. There's going to be people on board that they tested negative because their symptoms haven't manifested because they weren't far enough in their infection to test positive, and they're going to get on board and they're going to be positive and they're going to be people. So do you throw the whole thing out because you're going to miss some people, or is the net big enough that you're going to catch enough people to keep it? I believe that's why they're doing it. Again, I think that is debatable whether tests work, all that kind of stuff. And we're layering safety protocols here, and somebody's got the math on this. If they're not catching anybody with the pre-cruise testing, then I think it's just a waste. But if they're catching 5% or 10%, I think it makes for a safer cruise environment to not have people that are knowingly positive get on the cruise ship. And look, I understand that we're not doing this anywhere else. We're not doing this anywhere else where we gather people, but just because we're not doing it anywhere else, does that mean it's not worth doing? I don't know. It's an interesting thing. It's like, okay, well, this is a little more safe, possibly. Why not do it? Or is it, well, we're not doing it anywhere else, so let's not do it? I don't know, and again, I think the cruise lines are trying to balance how many people are not cruising because of the pre-cruise testing, because of the vaccination. And I definitely think they're looking at how the demand ebbs and flows when it comes to masking. Masking's the biggest challenge for me because I have seen both sides of the argument where people have said that masking doesn't work at all. And I've seen the other side of the argument that says masking does work well. And unfortunately, I've never found a definitive source either way to make me feel comfortable about that. In theory, I understand masking. In the beginning, it was put something over your face so that as your snot and your spit came out of your face, you weren't putting that out into the world. And then that evolved to, well, stuff's getting out into the world. Let's go with better masks. Let's go to the N95 mask. And then that way you can prevent stuff coming from the outside of the world into your face. Either way, the whole process really only worked if everybody was wearing masks, and then it really only worked very well if everybody was wearing N95 masks. In my thought process. Now, again, I haven't seen any hard data, and I know that the conventional folks are still saying that masking is helpful. The idea there is to prevent the spread, but when it comes to the business of cruising, I think the cruise lines understand that masking is not something people want to do on cruise ships, and I think that is one situation. So if you look at masking and testing differently, I think the cruise lines must be finding value in testing. That's why they continue to do it, and they're continuing to get enough people on the cruise ships, but I think they realize that a lot of people find masking untenable, and so I think that's why you can get on the cruise ship and not wear a mask. And who knows, and I know that sounds a little uneducated on my part, but I have looked high and low. I've looked at both sides. I've heard the vitriol, the rhetoric. That's such a problem. It's such a challenge with today's flow of information, is getting to valid source information, not just listening to your favorite guy on TV or your buddy that works down the road. It's like, how do you get to legit expert information in this sea of everything to get to the what the is? But it's tough. So for me, at the end of the day, I'm glad to go cruising without a mask. I think that is a risk worth taking. But I would never, shame anybody for wearing a mask. There's times that I'm still tempted to wear a mask when I'm in a crowd. And so I got no problem with that. Would it be a bummer if they say you have to wear a mask in all public areas? Yeah, I don't really like cruising like that, but I like cruising more than not liking cruising like that. So I would still cruise with the mask. I've done it a lot. And I just just wish there was some definitive way to say that that was helping things out. Like, and, you know, other than just somebody saying that. And then again, when it comes to testing, were we testing just because the CDC told the cruise lines they had to do that? Or is there some legit data that says this is keeping X amount of people on you know, with the positive off the cruise ship? And then finally with the vaccine, I do think it's like, could you imagine if they just opened the cruise ships wide open and then there were a lot of severe cases of COVID on board and heaven forbid somebody passed away on cruises? That would be detrimental to the cruise business. And so I think they're trying to pull whatever levers possible to make sure that they don't have severe COVID on board. So that's where I'm at. That's my thought process. You know, I'm sure there's going to be people agree. There's going to be people that disagree. I'm sure people will want to engage in good dialogue. And then I'm sure there's people that are just going to call me names, which is really a sad state of the world. But, you know, again, we live in this sea of information and we're all trying to navigate it. What are our trusted sources? It's a wild time. It's a wild time. And in wild times, we end up doing wild things. I pulled the trigger yesterday. I've been off the sea for 17 days. I was jonesing, and now I've decided to do something crazy. I'll be jumping on a cruise ship on Saturday. I'm going to live in a solo cabin, a 99 square foot solo cabin for 7 days on the NCL getaway. And I'm gonna live as a solo cruiser. I'm gonna try to do the solo cruisers things. I'm gonna go to the solo cruiser lounge. I'm gonna sign up and eat dinner with strangers. What? So any solo cruising tips out there? I've got so much to do in the next 2 days. But yeah, Jenny B kicked me out of the house. She's got work to do, and so I'm off on another see what it's like to cruise as a solo adventure. And this time I'm doing it full solo style. 1 week in an interior 99 square foot cabin. It's am I crazy? What am I crazy? And then a quick update on my thyroid ultrascan.
Ultrascan? Like this dude can't say ultrasound?
I was having fun with the ultrasound technician. I was like, could I get a picture, like a baby picture? She's like, no, we don't do that. The only indication that she gave me, and I said, like, I don't know if you can say anything or not, but how's it looking? And she said, well, this isn't the prettiest thyroid I've ever seen. I don't know. I'm one of those people that nothing's a problem till it's a problem. So I have my doctor's appointment. I think on the 1st of August, we go back. All kinds of stuff been going on. Got blood work. We're doing a sleep study. Got this thyroid thing. And so when we go back to the doctor on the 1st of August, I guess we'll have conversations about all of that. But the ultrasound process was pretty easy. And I don't know. So my thyroid is it's not sexy. That's what she said in so many words or less. How about that? Boom, that is your show today. A lot going on. Hope you enjoyed it. You can do me a solid by hitting the like button. And if you do not hit the like button, well, I'll be forced to punish you. And your punishment is this. The next time you go for a medical procedure, somebody will say your thyroid's not the prettiest one they've ever seen. Do you have a pretty thyroid? Are we sharing pictures of that? I don't think you can. It's inside your body. This is Tony for Lido Loca. Until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.